Hello, everyone. We're trying something new. We are on Facebook Live. We're trying this for this year. I'm looking to see if Mr. Edward StOnge is going to be joining us. I think he's in the wings. Let's see what we got going on here. We should be good with, this is a new platform for us using this. And then there's Mr. Ed joining us. I guess we don't have a green room when it comes to Facebook, but hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 126 of This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. I am one of your co-hosts, Mr. Lauren Gray. There with me is Mr. Edward StOnge from Flip2. Mr. Ed, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It looks like Mr. Tim is struggling with his internet, as he mentioned earlier this morning. This is our first attempt on going Facebook Live first, rather than going through YouTube and then to Facebook Live. So obviously, the green room doesn't seem to be an option, I guess, on this methodology. It did not go live for you. What did you get when you logged in?
It said it was waiting for you. I'm trying to kick on the Facebook chat now, and it's messing with me. It's playing the video in delay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this weird. May not be the better course of action to go to.
Well, it wouldn't be our show without technical difficulties.
Hey, we are. What is it? Star Trek, to seek out new life and new adventures, to boldly go where no show has gone before.
Right. Exactly.
Wait, look. Star Trek. Okay.
Oh man.
Mr. Robert Cole.
Citronaut.
Oh boy.
Old school UCF.
That was scary for a second there.
Sure was.
I was not sure what we were going to see.
Not sure what we're going to see. Well, this is interesting. I'm going to pull the Facebook chat up on my other computer just in case somebody wants to.
Here we go. I figured out I could just mute it, and so that's better.
Okay. Let's see what happens. Possibly.
Hey,
Mr. Tim,
look.
Hey. Oh my God.
Here. Wow. Snow didn't knock out your internet completely, huh?
I had to reboot my modem like 4 times, but finally things came back. I don't know if rebooting had anything to do with it, or Comcast just got it working at the same time as the final reboot. But
I guess it's how you answer the question. When you go to an elevator, if you push it more than once, is because you want to convince the elevator there's more people waiting.
Right.
Exactly. What's that? It's a logical fallacy, you know. I can't think. I'm looking it up right now. There's a logical fallacy that, you know, post hoc ergo propter hoc. Here it is. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. Big mistake. People make it all the time. It actually is relevant to what we talk about here from time to time, because this, when you translate it literally, it means after this, therefore because of this. Right? So this thing where item B happened after item A, so item A clearly was the cause of item B, which isn't necessarily true. And we see this all the time I see this all the time when I work with clients. I'm sure you guys see the same thing, you know, and I'm sure everybody else has experienced it, you know, that, we put more money into our budget, or we took money out of our budget and something happened. So doing that was the cause, which isn't necessarily true, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why
I think that's where
tests and things like that, right?
I think that's where you just defined where superstition comes from.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
And I am very happy to say, is this going to be a new segment? We begin each show with a short Latin lesson.
Yes.
I mean, that's very, very nice.
It would class things up a bit.
It would class things up. We're getting classy. See, Mr. Tim, you haven't been with us for a couple of weeks, but now that you're back, you're already classing the joint up.
Well, I'm just very fortunate. My father, I am the youngest child of a guy who had his kids late in life. And so, you know, when my father was a boy, Latin was a living language. So we grew up with it around the house.
Me too. I got to go to
let you know when those jokes come by, so you can all know when.
I got.
Oh, I was aware it was a joke. I'm sorry.
I got to go to mass. I got to go to mass every Sunday, which was in Latin, and plus with the added benefit of Gregorian chants.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Nice. Very nice. Well, fortunately, I shouldn't say fortunately, that's the wrong way to say that. I'm a little bit younger than you, Robert. By a little, I mean a fair bit.
Yes.
And so Latin Mass was gone by the time I
Vatican,
paid
Vatican
attention.
II,
Vatican II, baby.
64, great thing. Fish on Friday, not having to fast from Saturday night till Sunday. All sorts of good stuff in there.
Oh wow, I didn't remember that. I remember fish on Fridays for sure, but
Oh yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff in there.
but anyway, there's so many jokes I want to make, but they're probably inappropriate, so I'm just gonna walk
So
away.
now
from
we've
that.
covered
We'll
both
move on.
languages, we've covered religion. What else should we move on to?
Let's go to politics.
Let's go to politics. Oh, wait a minute. That's
Hey,
already as bad
anybody
as
read
that.
any good books lately?
No, just all the tweeted highlights.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God, yes.
Anyway, let's not go. Yeah.
Any of you who follow me on Twitter have seen that I've been channeling Rock Cheetah these last few days, making the cause for UCF and their little stunt that they're pulling.
Oh, yeah, actually, you brought that up with us in the conversation you and I were having. Why don't we hit that one first, since Robert had some great topics. I was just a minute shy of throwing out my topics, and he
I
dumped
figured
them,
we're
which is great.
allocating, is the plan to allocate, what, 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes to UCF?
Right. Yeah.
Play-by-play review of each play in the Peach Bowl.
Well, for those of you who may not follow college football, they take kind of a strange approach to their postseason at the FBS Division One level.
It's a beauty pageant.
Well, it's more of an invitational than a championship, and that invitational is designed to leave out the majority of the teams that play in it. So UCF did something that a few other schools have done, where they ran the table on the conference, on all the schedule put in front of them, went undefeated, then went and played one of the elite teams and handled them quite nicely. Beat them by a larger, put up more points on them than any other team they played this season, which includes the two teams that are playing Monday for the trophy. And so UCF, being an up-and-coming school, a very young program, 35 years in college football. So as far as Division I schools go, they're still a newborn in the programs. But in that very young time have gotten to 2 elite bowl games faster than any other school program has, and also has won both elite bowls that they've been brought into. So, which is all great. But the perfect storm happened this year. 2 of the teams picked to be in the beauty pageant happen to be in the same conference, which is widely believed to be the conference that controls all of college football. And those 2 programs happen to be the programs that tend to also be believed to have the majority of control over college football. They also happen to have lost a game each this season, and the only team that beat both of them is actually the team that UCF just beat. So UCF is making a case that it's claiming the national championship this year.
Got it.
And that is actually a large marketing ploy for
absolutely.
UCF.
Oh, God. Sure.
And it's been quite brilliant because it set the world on fire in college sports, initially offending everyone. But then, as people have heard the athletics director from UCF do the round, which, by the way, he's had more media coverage in the last 3 days than the school's had probably in the last 3 years combined.
Which is great for them.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
And we're really taking up the cause of either stop calling it a championship and call it an invitational, because a committee based on opinion picks who gets to play in a 4-team playoff. That is not a championship. That's an invitational, and that's fine, but call it that. Or fix the system. Go to a wider playoff that has rules, so you can enter a season and actually understand what it takes to be invited to the invitational. And keep with those rules, and get rid of a lot of the opinion that it takes. The committee uses something they call an eye test as one of their deciding factors on who gets in.
Oh, God.
An eye test?
An eye test. And it's not like
they put the first initial of each school name and make it smaller or something? Yeah.
It's basically what you would call a sniff test.
They look like a champion.
Right.
Oh,
So there's an entire collection of schools, which is actually the majority of the schools that coming into the season are already unable to get into the invitational.
For sure.
So, what's interesting about it is how UCF is handling it from a marketing perspective. So they've gone all in. They not only claim the national championship, they're putting up a banner. There's a parade at Disney. The mayor of Orlando is throwing a block party celebration that happens to be at the same time as the game Monday for the other trophy. And UCF is actually paying out the bonuses to its coaches as if they won the championship.
Nice. That's very
nice.
Smart.
So,
Very
I thought it was interesting to talk about from a marketing perspective because, how often do you encounter in business just inability to get to where you want to go because the system's rigged against you, and then how do you approach like punching through that?
Sure.
And I think it's a neat case study in thinking it through, because I'm curious if UCF thought through if you're going to claim a national championship, are you going to see it all the way through? Are you going to pay your coaches? It's like $330,000 in bonuses that are being paid out.
a small portion of their salary. So okay, not,
and then what are you going to do to take advantage of it? How do you run the media? How do you create a consistent message? And especially in a case with sports where you have a fan base that you want to try and get that fan base speaking that consistent message, to the point where even the fan base now, UCF's fan base, has paid for a billboard in Atlanta next week, congratulating the two teams playing on their consolation, on their second and third place competition.
so they're just basically trolling them, but very well.
Right.
This is appropriate.
A well-orchestrated trolling campaign.
And think about you look at trolling as normally a negative thing, but in this case, they're using trolling to get a real national conversation going.
Right.
With UCF at the center of it, which is really interesting. And I thought, how can we apply that to hotels? What can a hotel do to take what UCF's doing and apply that to maybe some unfair things that are happening in their market?
I think that's a great point. I think there's something to be said for, being opportunistic in the right way, right? They have an opportunity right now. There is clearly a moment that they can seize upon. And there's a phrase. I'm not the biggest fan of the phrase, and I'm not the biggest fan of the technique because I've seen it done badly so often. At the same time, when it's done well, there's this concept called newsjacking, right? Where you hijack a news story, you jump on a news story to your advantage. The one I use all the time. It's a slightly older one. It's getting a little dated right now, but I always love this example because it was brilliant, and it speaks to something I like a lot outside of the hospitality industry. You all remember the United Breaks Guitars video, right? Very hugely viral video. This guy in a band saw people tossing his guitars around outside the United plane. The guitar broke, etc. And he got a lot of coverage for this. The video went viral. He got millions and millions and millions of views.
Well, and United really mishandled it too.
Oh, and United,
they were just like,
United, did a really, really crappy job on this one for sure. Right, United did everything wrong. Right, but a company called Taylor Guitars, who made the guitar that the guy actually used, jumped on and made a very quick video. I will post a link to it in just a second. I'm looking it up right now. They're a small company. They sell very high-end acoustic guitars that cost, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000. So they don't sell tons of these, right? They're not Fender, they're not Gibson, they're not the big brands that you might have heard of.
And their old ones sell for even more.
Oh, and their old ones sell for even more. Of course, I'm a Martin guy, so I really like Martins better. But Taylor's are very nice guitars too. And they did a whole quick thing about, here's what you can do to make your guitar shippable. You can make it transportable in a way that it won't break. Oh, and by the way, if your guitar ever breaks for any reason, you send it to us and we'll fix it free because we give a lifetime warranty that these things are great. And they got, I just pulled it up, they've gotten about 800,000 views on this video for something that was clearly shot with, somebody's potato phone. It's just Dave Taylor of Taylor Guitars standing in front of their shop, badly lit, and it worked really well. It's an excellent video that does. It's 2 minutes. It's 1:57. It's done. It's not fancy. It's not high production value. It's nothing. It's literally just a guy who loves guitars talking about, here's how you prevent this happening to you. Here's how we take care of you if it ever does. But
it's authentic. It's authentic. It's relevant. It's the guy whose name is on the sign. I mean,
exactly.
It's exactly what you want.
Right. And so I was even thinking, like, if I was a hotelier and I followed college football, how could you hop on this? And you have to be careful because you don't want to alienate.
If you're in Alabama, maybe just maybe not. This isn't the one for you. But,
if you're in Ohio, because Ohio State got robbed this year getting in. They should have gotten in.
I'm a Michigan fan, so I'm perfectly fine.
Right, but so you look at that. So how do you correctly jump on this? And obviously, if you're in Orlando, it's really easy. Just come out and proclaim your support of your hometown team. Right. Easy
well,
enough.
Disney, a pretty big company who who has the national championship game? What network?
It's ESPN.
It is ESPN.
Yes.
That's why I was wondering, were they going against, or were they kind of enhancing their own? That's good. So.
It's actually quite funny because yes, the Disney park that is throwing the parade for UCF is also on the opposite side of this.
That's amazing.
So they played it well.
That's called having your cake and eating it too.
Yep. And so it's really interesting. I think if I was a hotel in Ohio, I would test the waters on supporting it. And tying it to Ohio State. Ohio State should have been in. So that way you don't alienate your local traveler. But you can also win what is a pretty large traveler base, and it is the fastest growing school. So if you're remembered in this interaction, UCF has 60,000 students right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. 60,000.
Oh, yeah.
So, you think about that, it's actually a pretty big audience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And a very fast growing audience. So, just kind of an interesting thing. I kind of was trying to think through how hotels could take it. I actually reached out, because I'm pro UCF, to
really
my friend at Experience Kissimmee, saying, hey, Experience Kissimmee probably could jump on this.
Yeah.
UCF does have a school in that county, and here's a great chance to get in front of that fan base, and local travel to Kissimmee is a very big thing.
That's awesome. That's great. No, that's
and
cool.
Phoenix could have stepped up and done some sort of neutral field, Ohio State UCF game like next
for
week.
The real championship. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of interesting things that that are opportunities here, but they're also the type of opportunity that you have to look at carefully, because you have to realize, for the people who find it very interesting, there are people who are very mad that it's happening.
Right.
So you do have to tread carefully as this continues to develop.
And that gets back to why I'm not always the biggest fan of newsjacking, just because you can do it badly easily, right?
Yep.
Like it's really simple to screw up. So I agree with the concept of be opportunistic, but tread lightly at the same time.
And also
the
understand
story
if you're
can turn
newsjacking,
also, right?
right? If you're newsjacking something, you need to understand that the reason it's news that's worthy of jacking is there is someone who's upset.
That's exactly right.
And so
exactly
you
right.
have your response prepared for the people who are upset, who are going to reach out to you with how ridiculous it is that you're in this.
Yeah.
And I will say, if you can handle that communication really well, I think you can even win them.
Yeah. And this is probably a place, Ed, I don't know if you and I will agree on this one or not, because I tend to be a little more conservative on this. You tend to be a little more push the edge on this, right? I think, and I suspect the other guys fall somewhere on the spectrum between us, but I think you want to be really careful about the type of news it is. Some people have done this well with topics that are fairly controversial. My tendency is, on the things that are really controversial, be especially careful, or maybe don't do it at all. Yeah,
I'll agree with you on that. I mean, the example you chose with the guitar getting broken, like that's an easy one. You're not going to really you may make United or whatever airline it was mad, but who cares? But the guy who got dragged off a United plane and beaten,
probably not one you want to jump.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So, there is a threshold of where you may just want to stay away if you can't game out who's going to be mad, and that's what you should ask yourself: who's going to be mad, and can you live with that, or can you win them by having an intelligent response?
The other thing
you need a strategy and a plan for these. It's not just the whim can get you in trouble.
Yes, the blowback can really outweigh the upside of the getting on the news.
So I'm going to tread into politics for 1 second, but
why not? Religion, college football. Wow, why not?
No. But there's a good lesson from political campaigns that applies here. One of the things that's great about political campaigns from a pure marketing perspective is it is a zero-sum game, which is not generally true in business contexts, right? When election day comes, your candidate wins or your candidate loses. Your marketing either did its job or it did not, period, right?
Right.
And one of the things that you learn from political campaigns that applies to this a lot is never punch down, right? Only ever punch up.
Yes.
And I mean, first of all, I think that's a good rule in life anyway, but it's especially true in this case where, I live in New Jersey, right? The whole Bridgegate scandal, for folks who don't live here, I don't know how big a story this was outside. I know people heard about it and stuff.
It was big.
But
big.
Here's why it was big, right? Most people know in politics, I actually worked years and years and years ago on a political campaign, years and years and years ago, so I had some introduction to this. I don't consider myself an expert in this, but I've been a casual observer and more than casual observer ever since, especially of campaigns from a marketing perspective. And what voters intuitively understand, even though they wouldn't articulate it, is politicians can be jerks to other politicians. That's part of the game, right? Everybody expects there's going to be sharp elbows under the hoop, right?
Right.
That's the thing. What you can't do is be jerks to voters.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And where Bridgegate really hurt Christie, the governor, was that by doing this, he made life harder for people who voted. He did this to punish other politicians, but what he really did was punish voters, and that's always bad. So if you're going to newsjack and you're going to do something, if you're making fun of United, you're punching up and you're not hurting the guest, you're not hurting the customer. People are going to be like, that's totally fine, right? That's why the United thing, that's why the Taylor thing works so well. If it's, the guy who got beaten up and you're going to make fun of that situation, now you're literally kicking someone when he's down. That is a terrible thing. And people go, these guys are jerks. These guys are just absolute, a-holes. So,
so I'm guessing Uber probably did that.
Oh my God!
Did Uber kick the guy who got beat up?
Once or twice, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me because
Yeah.
they like to kick someone when they're down.
Right. They had a long history. They had a culture of punching down, not punching up.
Right.
And that's
Why I hate them.
and with really good reason from my
Right.
perspective.
A
Right?
valid reason for hating.
That's an entirely
Speaking of which,
valid.
Tim, you're like
And now,
really-
and now Barney Harford, formerly with Orbitz, is now COO. So Dara brought him in. So
That's right.
more travel.
And they're trying to change
Nice-
the culture.
nice
of-
travel people going to Uber to try to
Yeah.
change that culture, which is a tough. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the bridge gate was big enough that when Christie closed the beach and then
yeah.
used it for himself, that made it down here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Again, punching down, right? Who
Yep.
got
Yep.
hurt in that? Not other
Yeah.
politicians, not other people who have decided to get in the arena, right?
Right.
So yeah,
Was there-
punch your competition just fine.
Okay, so
Well,
Mr. Tim,
But even that, only
But
if
even
you're
that-
punching up.
But
Don't
only
beat
Right.
on your small competition. Beat on the
Right.
big giants.
Absolutely.
okay, so I'll ask one political question, Mr. Tim, since you were the local in the conversation to this. What possibly is the conversation locally about how he could have sold his soul to the devil way back when with Trump? What was the scuttlebutt about? Why would he go from being a promising candidate to being the butt end, literally a joke associated with his?
You're asking how a
relationship with Trump?
politician from New Jersey could have potentially been in good favor with Trump.
No,
you are
not in
aware
good favor.
of Trump's dealings.
No.
Yeah, but it's like,
Well-
was it because they thought something was
No,
wrong?
it
or
was a
what?
calculation that went awry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with Robert completely. Here's the thing. I have my political views. I keep them to myself because I don't think I'm going to change a lot of people's minds. But one that I am absolutely willing to share publicly with anybody is you're saying a politician, doesn't matter the party, doesn't matter where he's from, etc.
The sentence starts with
saw
that.
an opportunity to advance their career and humiliated and humbled themselves to do so.
Right.
That's shocking to me.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. I just
Right.
noticed
And-
some other conversations around it, but okay.
I think-
I think you can find.
I'll give you my theory
you can
is
find dozens of those, every year. Frankly, larger scale and smaller scale. So
I think Christie was blinded by ambition to become vice president and completely ignored Trump's track record. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
Go do that and just and just got beaten up for, which I think is also, you look at the way Mike Pence is handling himself. I think he is doing a fairly masterful job. You do not hear Mike Pence Russia, Mike Pence North Korea, Mike Pence Jerusalem. None of that. Now he's up there doing stuff, but yeah. And
They have a
I
TV
think
show for that already
same
called
theory.
Designated Survivor.
yeah. but I don't think Pence, for 90% of what Trump's going for, I don't think Pence is online for a lot of it, but he's just biding his time, thinking, well, whatever happens, if there's an impeachment, he leaves, he resigns, whatever goes, I'm the guy. Or 2020, maybe I can go do this. Who knows, right? So he's got his gambit in there, and I think is playing it pretty.
So
pretty
to
well.
tie this all back, just in case you didn't catch why we were talking about college football and politics, in the case when there is some newsjacking or the ability to hop on a fun, popular topic, rule of thumb is punch up, don't punch down.
Right. By the way, I have to do one quick logistical thing. I don't know if you guys saw the email. I screwed something up when I logged on. This is the first time I've been on the show in a couple of weeks, and we have the new Facebook chat, and I did something wrong when I got in, and I can't actually chat. So I emailed the link to the YouTube video. If somebody wants to post that in the chat, that'd be great.
I think it was me saying that they didn't have complete access to all the groups that I manage, or things like that.
Well, whatever happened there, I can't do it. So if somebody wants to post that for folks who are viewing the show, if you want to check out the video, again, it's a good example. I actually think it's a very good example of, you don't need the best production values. I would never hold this up as an example of a perfect video. I would hold it up as an example of a perfect video for the time, in terms of they took advantage of an opportunity, and quick, and getting something out there was better than waiting until you got it perfect. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the lesson I would take away.
And I think the other thing we could talk about, tie it into hospitality, is UCF's fan base has jumped on this bandwagon and has been kind of selling the same message. And the same thing happened in the United Beating case. A lot of Southwest customers, a lot of other customers started writing better punchlines. That was my favorite. My favorite was United's new punchline should be, "We've come to sell tickets and kick asses. We're out of tickets."
Yeah.
I don't want the David Ib reference, by the way. That's fantastic.
It's originator. Yeah.
I threw up one of the topics that Robert, you brought to the table, that Hilton, a little bit of the echo of our conversation, Ed, from last week that we had about how Disney changed their D&D, do not disturb tags. Hilton had their little pop-up thing. Robert, do you want to grab on that one, the do not disturb sign policy?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, as a outcome of the Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas shootings, where apparently this fellow heavily armed was in his room for multiple days with his do not disturb sign. There's now what I would almost say an overreaction by the hotel industry to really look at, hey, we can come in anytime into your room and your do not disturb sign doesn't mean anything, which is how it's getting played in some aspects of the blogosphere. But it's I think it's an interesting case that, yes, hotels should have the right to do it, but I think they've got to still be very, very considerate of the purpose of that do not disturb sign, and consider their guests why their guests have it. I mean,
and can you really call it a do not disturb sign if it's not going to keep you out? Should it be preferred to be left alone, or
right? And actually there was a term unable. Yeah, I can't remember what the term. There's another term that is not do not disturb, which was that they used in this article, and it's not. Never mind, I'll look for it's something.
It's an occupation. The room is occupied.
Room is occupied or something like that.
So
sign.
Here's my question for you.
That doesn't mean anything. Right?
And this will all be just guessing anyways. So do you think this is because Hilton and Disney saw that there's real consumer fear, or do you think this is an insurance play?
I think it's I think.
Okay, just so everyone understands, there is a legality to D&Ds. I mean, there is legal precedence associated with do not disturb tags. That it is in policy that if a tag is on a door and you violate that without due cause of concern of the guest safety or of safety of other guests, that you are in violation of privacy, because part of the contract of being a hospitality or an innkeeper is that you are basically allowing for a brief period of time designated by the 24-hour period that area of space of your building is considered private residence. And that tag is an indication as to the resident's desire to have the owner have availability to that property space. And if you put that tag on the door, you have a legality of not violating it without due cause. And that has come through court many times, where discoverability in a room of drugs, discoverability of inappropriate actions, because that violation of trust of that sign's indication meant that was like search and seizure. If you didn't have a warrant, you didn't have a right, which means you can't use what you saw. So there is a legality to this that says we're now saying that doesn't count, that you don't have a barrier to legal violation. If I go as an innkeeper into your room and find illicit drugs and you had that sign on, I can still turn you in now, because I don't have recourse. You can't sue me back that I violated your space. Right. And so it's like saying you can come into my house, Mr. Officer, without a warrant now, just because you want to. So there is a depth to this that is a little scary in its perspective.
Right, which makes you wonder where it's coming from. And I think it's coming from insurance. I think they probably did.
You think it's about the liability?
Legal.
Well, I think they did the two different ends of it, right? So why do I put a do not disturb on my room? Because I don't want people going through my crap, right? And I want that if it turns out they went through my crap, I have like a real case. I mean, and that's really it. I don't care if you clean my room. I rarely stay at a hotel for more than 2 or 3 nights anyway. So the supplies you gave me were enough. You know, so I think about this, you know, they're opening themselves up to liability by degrading the do not disturb, you know, kind of contract, if you will. I'm sure they balance that against their liability or corporate brand damage if another shooting like this happens.
Right. Yeah.
I doubt it's consumer sentiment. Personally, I have no data that proves I'm right or wrong here, but it reeks of this is insurance company
risk mitigation. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
but I think it is reasonable though for the hoteliers, and well, the tough part is really going to be the execution of this, because now they're on a interesting little teeter-totter, because if they just come in and they disturb people, they go, wait a second. I didn't have that on my door for 24 hours, right? I had it off my door for whatever. Yeah.
Well, this is where if I was Hilton, I would
it.
change what the door hanger says. It can't say "do not disturb."
Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying it's
knock.
It's
please knock first, and if I don't respond, like they're going to have to put something that represents what it is, and it's no longer a "do not disturb."
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and that's why they're saying room occupied, which I think is kind of ridiculous, because the hotel should know, A, if that room is occupied, or if it's vacant, and B, if it's clean.
Well, but they don't know that. But they don't necessarily know that you're in the room or not, right?
Oh no,
I generally don't have my do not disturb on when I'm in the room. I generally put it on when I leave my room.
Yeah. Actually, you know what's funny is I'm sort of like you, Ed, on this one, and a little bit different is I have my do not disturb sign on pretty much, because if I'm on a one-night stay, which is really common for me, I put the do not disturb sign on the moment I enter the room, and I take the do not disturb sign off when I check out, and it's there the entire time, whether I'm actually in the room or I've gone down to the lobby to meet somebody, or I've gone out to dinner or whatever.
Historically, I've always done the D&D, when I leave the room, so that I can preclude the idea that a housekeeper or anybody went over and said, "Oh, I went in," and also too, and this just comes from the familiarity of the industry. Duplicate room processing happens all the time. It gets rekeyed out to somebody else, and next thing you walk in, I don't know how many times either somebody's knocked on the door or they're trying to put a key in, or a key actually works, and it's like, I just got checked in, so it's like, dude, this room's already occupied, or the other circumstances. Always put the D&D on.
Right. I do the same thing.
Some other things that just some people are aware of is that with this potential change, it does also open up the opportunity for you to do self-securing of your own room. Some things that are not mostly known about it is that as the occupant of the room, you don't have to rely upon the security that's being provided to you. You can secure your own door. As you know, your engineering teams in your hotels and so forth, they can unlock any chain door, any flip lever, anything like that. There's tools to do that all the time, especially, again, under the auspices of safety and concern for the guests that they need to get into a room.
Right. Duty of care overrides everything.
Right. And it should always be that case. But by the same token, you can put your own security on. You can put your own lock on a door. You can put your own door wedge in. Is that good advice? Absolutely not, because of fire hazards and stress.
Yeah, what if you have a heart attack in your room?
Right. They can't get to you. So
that's why I strongly recommend a balloon filled with paint rigged over the door.
Now, see, that you can purposely get away with.
It won't stop them from getting in, but you'll know
who was.
Tim, Lauren actually prefers the laser-based systems, which he sets up.
No.
He has 45 minutes to set up when he checks in.
No, nothing that complex. Just a damp towel connected to a battery backpack. So when they step, they tingle, and they just know they're in the wrong room.
I always used to just do the old, single hair with a pice of tape, but unfortunately these days, that's no longer an option.
You've been traveling a lot, haven't you, Tim? You've been traveling a lot, dude.
So now, unfortunately, Tim travels with some hair in a little baggie. Also,
that actually sounds super creepy. I really don't do that. Let's be clear. Normally, I just go with the joke, but that one we're just moving right away.
Right.
Hey, but by the same token, for all of us who've traveled internationally, I have a motion sensor alarm that I throw in my suitcase, and I do this as a courtesy when I travel. Is I always repack everything into my suitcase and lock it up, so that when housekeeping does come in, because God knows I know how they clean a room, I make sure my stuff's out of the way. And I make sure that there's a lock on my suitcase of my stuff back in it, other than the clothes I leave hanging and stuff like that. But I put everything off the countertops and put everything into the suitcase and lock it, because having to have to deal this from the other perspective, a left open suitcase and a less than trustworthy staff member, they can look at whatever they want and you would never know, because it just flips open or just opens. So they would have to go beyond the normal curiosity level to actually get to your things. And so I just tend to relock stuff up that I'm leaving in the room, other than hanging clothes and shoes on the floor.
And you ask yourself, why? Yeah. Why do people like us do that? I can give you.
Why don't we touch remotes? Why don't we go over wipe down handles?
Why don't we use the glass? What's even worse is this isn't even travel related. This is in my personal life. So we had a housekeeper who always had 2 or 3 helpers with her, and my wife came home while they were cleaning the house and walked into our master bathroom, and there was one of the helpers shaving her arms with my wife's razor.
All right. That's all right. So I have one horse.
Let's not digress on this story.
So if that had happened with someone you hired, and listen, that person may not have even thought about it, thought that there was anything wrong with that. But yeah, where's the threshold on what humans see as right or wrong?
Right.
Would someone see a problem with using your toothbrush?
Well, so. Yeah, you.
Right, and this is
no.
I mean,
or leaving pictures of what they were doing with your toothbrush, which is let's not go down that road.
Yeah. I got
that did happen to you, Robert. You never said a thing to me about it. I paid a lot of money to do that to you.
No. Actually, the story. My wife, who former flight attendant in New Jersey, there was a hotel near Newark Airport, which had drop ceilings. Not necessarily a good thing for a hotel to do, but she couldn't. Not my wife, but someone she was flying with could not find her shoes when she was checking. And she's like, "Where are my shoes?" Found them in a drawer with a note that said, "Thank you for letting me watch you sleep." That's not good. Yeah.
Wow, that's not good at all. Okay, no more horror stories. Nobody's going to want to be in this industry.
That may have been just somebody.
Yeah, nobody's ever going to stay in a hotel again after watching this episode of the show.
I must say, we're going to talk happy.
No one's going to stay in a hotel with drop ceilings in there.
Well, that's I do want to digress for 1 second, because I just want to tell one super.
You want to digress from our digression?
Yeah.
Wait,
wow.
Ed, you mean that with drop ceilings, when you check into the room and you see someone's foot going up through the ceiling, and that's a bad thing? I had no idea.
You're like the inception of digression, by the way.
This is a story that has nothing to do with hotels, but it's related to the conversation we're having, and it's just a funny story, so I've got to share it real quick.
Perfect.
And I'll tell it super quick.
No worries.
My cousin was having work done on his house. My cousin's wife walks into her bedroom. She'd been out of the house for a little bit. She walks into her bedroom, and there's one of the workmen going through their jewelry cabinet or something like that. Not that she had a lot of fancy jewelry or anything, but going through their stuff, right? Right. So she called the cops, right? The cops responded incredibly quickly. And here comes the sergeant of the force actually shows up, leading, a troop of police behind him. The guy who was the contractor says to the police officer, who has just walked up, the sergeant, officer, this is all just a big misunderstanding. If I could just talk to the lady's husband, I'm sure we could work this out. To which the sergeant replies, "I am the lady's husband." There's a reason why the cop showed up so quickly at my cousin's house, given that he was the cop in question.
Oh my!
Wow, I love that story, because that guy probably had one of the great "oh crap" faces of all time.
If you could take an Instagram shot of somebody's face, that would have been a good one to take at that moment.
Absolutely. So anyway.
And I wonder what his fault. Oh, he'd probably respond, "Oh, that's great. What I was going to say was."
Yeah. But don't rob a cop's house, because the police will show up very, very quickly for that one.
Yeah.
So we had the topic of the top 10 chatbot platforms.
Yeah.
All right. So can we talk about chatbots for a second?
Sure. That's kind of why I threw it in. It wasn't so much the platforms as it was they're getting to be more and more conversational topic and a little bit more valid conversational topic for some people.
So here's the thing. Have any of you attempted to chat with a company that you needed support on and got stuck with a chatbot that does not have the ability to hand you to a human?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Does it make you ever feel good?
No.
Has
Well-
it ever, no matter how good they've been, taken care of your problem?
I kind of felt like one of those reps in a Geico commercial. Somebody that likes running into glass walls and pouring hot coffee on themselves. Kind of feels like that.
So do we think perhaps they should be labeled to set an expectation on what they really are?
Right.
Yeah.
Some of them are good about indicating that this is an automated response to identify issues. If you structure that, I'm actually trying to build a bot right now, and it is very hard to string out the contingencies of variables without it sounding redundant, repetitive, trite, whatever. So to your point that Robert, is that at a certain first level response filtration, bots are helpful, being what they are. But do not try to create the bot solution process, because after the first decision, you have 2. Now you have 4. After 4, you have it's geometric, the growth variables.
And
when you start
they
trying to
have,
create
the
conditions.
alternatives have to be incredibly clear, and not you put people in the gray area, and all of a sudden they go down the wrong path, and then do you have a little explanation of how to back up? And all of a sudden you're just way in the weeds and not helping people.
So if you're using chatbots as a helpful way to route the person to the correct person, good idea. That's great. You hit chat, hi, how can I help you today? Looking for this. Great. Do you have questions specific to XYZ? Right? This type of thing. And then if the answer is no, or customer support or something like that, don't resist it. Let them go through. It annoys the crap out of me. I've yet to find a company that I feel like has done chatbots well, except for the ones that it's literally to get you to the right person. I like that. Let me answer a couple of questions so that way I can straight up get to the right person.
If it helps you, if it helps the consumer accomplish their goal faster, is kind of the key. And then you get into a percentage of how many, because you want the number one reason, whatever, to be option 1 or whatever. But are there 8 options? And how often does number 8 happen? If that's 10% of the time, that's going to be pretty annoying.
So like I warn anyone with anything new, you need to ask yourself why you would use a chatbot. What is the benefit to the traveler and to you? And is the benefit big enough in a measurable business way to potentially deal with the challenges that you will, no matter what, you will create challenges at some point for your customer? And you need to do the weighing of, does this make sense? Chatbot is not one of the techs that I think you jump into to say that you do it. This is one that it needs to be well thought out, well planned, and incredibly well executed. And by the way, then well upkept.
That's right.
I'm going to channel Tim while he's here, though. I'm going to channel you, though. I'm going to channel you real quick. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's Tim.
Well, but I have a specific question, and you guys can throw in an answer, but this is really for folks who are watching the show, right? What's the conversion rate on your website? I mean, when you think about a conversion rate number, what do you guys think about typically? Not what it should be, what it is.
I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing. It's 1.5 to 2%.
Right.
That's what Lauren's clients are all 55%. That's so weird.
Fuel Travels
making unrealistic.
I will say,
Start making unrealistic expectations.
Fuel Travels clients is much higher.
Right. Yeah.
But
and I mean, here's my point. So let's say it's 5%. Let's give people the benefit of the doubt that it's amazing, right? And it's 5%. What were the other 95 people out of 100 trying to accomplish?
Right.
And were they able to complete the task that they came to the website for? Because maybe they didn't come to book; they came to do something else, right? We'll give you the benefit of the doubt that your conversion rate is 5% because 5% came to the site to book, and the other 95% came for some reason. Do you know what the task completion rate is for those 95 people?
Yeah.
If you can't answer that question well today, if you don't have a sense of what those answers are, you're probably not ready to do a chatbot. In all sincerity, because you don't have a deep enough understanding of what it is your customers are trying to accomplish. You don't have a deep enough understanding of how they're trying to accomplish it with the questions that they have. That's where we need to be putting our focus first.
Oh, and if
because
the full
then
address
if you
of
have
your
the kind of
hotel-
content that allows them to do that on your website, then you'll have the kind of content that will support a chatbot working really well.
Yeah,
And
if
you're going to
the
get a
full
lot more people
address-
coming to your website than your chatbot. Then
Let me tell you-
just real quick, if the full address of your hotel is not above the fold on your homepage,
oh my God, absolutely. If the phone number isn't above, if you can't click on the phone number when they're on a mobile device.
Oh, right. When you move your cursor towards your Book Now button and your retargeting tool pops up,
oh my God,
you're not ready for chatbots.
Right.
That
Yeah. But the hotels,
get ready.
the hotels who are doing it really well, who have event tracking, they're using event tracking in Google Analytics. Period. For some purpose. Hopefully, they're using it competently. Second, if they have some sort of event that clicks out, and yes, it's a clickable number so they can track what's happening. And perhaps maybe they're using something that's a little bit more sophisticated that tailors that number that's getting called based on how they behaved on the site and what page they were on, that maybe directs them to a spot where it isn't just the general hotel number and you're in a queue for God knows what, and then going through a chatbot. Yeah, there's stuff you can do to simplify your guest experience.
I do want to accent, especially put an accent on an exclamation point, I should say, on something that Edward said: viable business value.
Right.
Just that you can measure the actual value produced, not because it's cute, you put it in the string, and you can even validate its purpose of happiness and helpfulness, but can you show that it cut down labor time? It increased guest satisfaction routing. It can identify and clarify and generate revenue in some model, but an actual measurable, quantifiable value proposition to it, then don't mess with it. I mean, that's literally the motivation. That's why I hung on what you said so much.
There's certain types of tech that unless you're going all in, you shouldn't.
Right.
Like touch. Yeah. Because there is tech that you can buy today as a hotel that your consumer will see as a contract of expectation. That's SMS messaging.
Mm-hmm.
So if you provide the ability for your traveler to SMS message with you, they see it as an expectation that you will be responding within a normal amount of time for SMS conversations. And that is near real time.
Like that's not 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, huh?
Right, and that's the thing, like, because you have to actually think about the fact that in off hours or in late hours, someone who may not normally SMS with you will SMS with you at that point because they don't want to get on the phone. They just have,
and maybe for a good reason. Yeah, maybe they have
So SMS is one that unless you're going all in operationally, you shouldn't do. Live chat or chatbot that leads to live chat, that's another one. You are setting an expectation. It's chat. So let me ask you this. When a guest walks up to you, do they expect you to pause for 10 minutes before answering the question they asked you face to face? No.
Such a good
but
point.
it's a chat. You're chatting with them.
Right.
It's the same thing in chat. There's a contract expectation. Like if you put it there, you're kind of putting out a contract that says, yep, this is a viable source to have service with us. And I'll tell you, the worst company I've encountered on it is UPS. Their chat, oh my gosh.
Oh my God, it's a nightmare.
It's so bad. And it's like chatbot hell. I actually still have not been able to figure out how to get out of the chatbot into a live chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that also goes with also live person chatting on a site as well. If you're not going to man it, and have response and staff it correctly to be able to do stuff with it, then you shouldn't put live chat on your website either, your live person stuff, because nothing's worse than, contact us directly, and it just sits and dies. It just, I mean,
Right.
maybe I mean it on.
But the thing is that exit after somebody's gone through whatever gauntlet you have set up technologically for them, that then they've already spent an amount of time that then when they figured out you have not answered their question, you have not solved their problem. Now they really want to talk to somebody quickly, and that's I mean, you've now you're starting from square minus 10.
So I'll tell you a fun thing that I inherited with a client that will remain nameless was they were actively spending large amounts of money putting messenger ads out that went nowhere. No link, no communication, no method of action, pretty picture. That was it.
Checkbox.
It was
Checkbox
like,
messenger
hey,
ad.
boss.
Where is the messenger?
Yeah, and I was just like, y'all know you're just.
Do they do anything for you? Not yet.
We're just testing. We're just testing.
Just see
So
what's
I'll
up.
tell you, I want to tell a positive story on this. So
Okay.
I stayed twice now at the Asbury Hotel in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Nice old property, refurbished, really, really good stuff. It's not a fancy place at all, but they do a great thing where their room service is via text. They don't deliver to the room, but they do this very well. You text them, and they brown bag it, and you go pick it up when you're ready.
That's great.
I like that.
This is what I want. This is what I want, and this is when I want it. And they text back if they have any questions. They text back thanks, or if they have any questions, and then you just go pick up the brown bag, and you're all set.
I will also.
That's how you do it really well. You set an expectation up front of how it works. You deliver on the expectation, and you respond to people when they need help.
Listen, I'll give, because I tend to pick on the brands on some of their stuff. Hilton honors chat. I used it for the first time, checking into a hotel in DC. I got out of the plane, sent a quick chat message. Hey, don't know if it's at all possible, but it would be amazing if I could check in super early today because I need to change before an event. 2 minutes into my ride, let me look into that for you. What's your confirmation number?
Right.
Gave it to them. By the time I arrived, it was, we can do that for you. Come see me. And as I walked up to the front desk, the person I was chatting with was the person who was at the front desk. That's probably the best possible execution I have.
Right.
It was way beyond my expectations.
Could have been better. Great execute. Now, did you do it out of the Hilton app? So
I did.
So they should have known that you had a reservation. Right? So they don't need to ask your confirmation number.
I don't know if they were asking because they didn't know. I think they were asking to verify it was me, or I don't know. Who knows why they asked that question. It didn't bother me much.
Your account on the Hilton thing.
But it saw, I was able, it was in the screen. I was able to pull it quickly. I didn't have to go dig around for it, so it didn't offend me. But I will say it was so well done that it set a standard for the trip. Now that same hotel, when I called twice, no answer to room service.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have been as sensitive to it had the chat experience going in not been so great.
So the moral of the story is do things poorly so you don't set expectations.
Homer Simpson famously said, "You tried your best and you failed." Yeah. So the moral of the story is don't try.
Don't try.
I prefer Nick Offerman. Better to do something whole last than a whole bunch of things half-assed.
Right. So anyways, so I will say it went incredibly well. Now, conversely, that was because it was a really slow day. There was not another person in the hotel. I wonder how that experience is when they're
slammed.
Right. And I haven't tested it. I'm not assuming that it would be bad. Maybe it offshoots to a call center or something like that. Who knows? But I will say the version of it that I saw was the perfect storm of excellent execution.
Right.
And it wasn't a chatbot. I hate chatbots. I really do.
I will give.
But
I
in
will
that
give.
situation, the early check-in though, you can't really do that to a call center. It's probably got to get to at least a front office supervisor. Now, maybe whatever clerk is empowered to do that, they've got carte blanche. But if they're really jammed and they had heavy checkout, they don't have a lot of rooms available. That sort of thing. That's got to go somewhere,
Right.
to someone who maybe.
Now, to be fair, I also
doing
gave them
something
the
else.
option
Yeah.
of an alternative solution of, is there just somewhere I could quickly change
Yeah.
in the hotel, like, because I didn't want to.
But that should be programmed operationally for that is a question that happens maybe not multiple times a day, but certainly multiple times per week.
Yeah.
I would say at most decent size hotel. So they should have that. If this is, if there's a room, yes, we can do this. If not, here are the alternatives. So they already have the staff trained to deal with it, so they can give that answer instantly and you're done.
I will give you one, and this is something that I was going to put more of a case study around, because it actually was a function of a bot that worked for one of my people that works with me, worked with the hotel, and I helped them with this. And this is what got me into the bot development part of that. One thing was they made a bot for a destination answering for their program on Facebook, for Facebook, and for also their site, that was allowing them to do level 1 simple, straightforward return answers on interest categories as a bot, that you were offering communication on recommendations of things, whether it be travel needs, like what are the local taxi connectivities, if you want to do taxi service, restaurant by category. What else did they have? They had events by day of time of opening, like what's available now that I can do that's in walking distance. That was the criteria build for what the responses were. So the responses were single layer responses through the bot. So it alleviated the purpose of creating the bot was to create a diminishment of time lag on their concierge platform and their concierge services that were just like, I have simple, more direct, consistent, persistent questions. And the bot was the alternative offer to those people to go and ask, hey, what's to do right now? And it'd be like, what are you interested in? And they would answer to what they're interested in. And immediately back was, these things are open right now within walking distance. If you would want more beyond this, then, concierge connectivity here. So
and that is freaking awesome, but that's also incredibly hard to do, right?
Absolutely.
So did that
weekends, holiday.
Skilled.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was actually for a 3-hotel group in Austin, and it was fun. And I helped him. He drew me into that project for them down there. It wasn't one of my clients, and I thought it was a really neat. That's what got me thinking about bots, right? And that's why I know that once you get past that first level, act, react, and you split the decision tree, you get into some crazy variables. So,
but I want to jump on
something
real quick, because
I was just going to say one. Hang on. I was just going to say one thing. It's like running a tech call center. You want to solve the person's problem at the first touch point, right?
Right.
That is like a key measurement in that. And then it's like the duration, right? The talk time that you did to solve their problem. If you can continuously work those numbers down,
right,
that's a great use for a bot. If you can't, run away.
So I'm gonna bang a drum. I bang a lot because this matters a ton to me, and I'm gonna get on my soapbox and I'm gonna get all fired up for a second because I care about this so much, and it helps you today and it will help you tomorrow. Right? Two things you must do. One, what are the questions that your customers always have?
Persistent questions. Yes.
What are the questions you always get? And two, do you have the content readily accessible on any channel your customer wants to use that's going to answer those questions? I don't care if we're talking chatbots. I don't care if we're talking websites. I don't care if it's your front desk person. Do you know how many people get this wrong? And this is so easy. This is fundamental. Your chatbot, everything you just said, Lauren, is damned cool. And if you don't have the answers to those questions, letting them ask it is the most jerk thing you can do. And people screw this up all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. I harp on content again and again and again and again and again and again and again because it helps you in search. Oh, and It helps you in social because now people have things they can share. Oh, and it gets you ready for things like chatbots when they become more common. Oh, and it should work on mobile because that's where people ask the questions a lot. Oh, and it should be accessible to your staff because they might actually ask a human being every now and again.
Right.
Oh, and it serves the need of your guest.
Oh, yeah.
And in theory, it's easy. Right now, it is hard because sometimes the hours change, and sometimes that place is closed at one day because it's a really great local joint. Mom got the flu, and so they're not open that day. It's hard to do in practice, but it's so necessary, and it serves your needs today, and it serves
your job though.
But it's your job, exactly.
You got one job.
Literally.
Help the guest.
Guest comes and they have a question. Look at all the work that Airbnb is doing with the local guides and things along those lines. Look at the work that Google is doing with having people come in and take the photographs and going in and getting their local guides. Look at all the work that Facebook is doing in this area. Look at all the work that TripAdvisor is doing in this area. Look at all the work that Yelp is. Why? Because this is what actually matters. All this other stuff. I love tech. I love tech as much as anybody. Look, new phone 10. It's awesome. Look, watch. It's awesome. Look, cool little keyboard because it's awesome. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Is that the prototype Apple keyboard? Oh my God.
Tim, are you sure they're going to let you show that?
Yep. And which is why I wanted to talk about this topic without actually talking about what platform is worthy or not.
That wasn't my
because it actually doesn't matter. It's are you worthy to use a chatbot platform?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I also threw in another article for you, Ed, and that was the growth of apps, because I just know how you love
apps.
Growth of apps.
All right, I got to go.
Unfortunately, Stuart bailed on us the minute before. He got something to pop up.
I'll say the same thing I say with chatbots. If you do it right and it adds value and it makes sense to your business, then yes, do it. However, if you're the majority of the hotels in this industry, no. Sorry. If your email is not good, if your website's not good, if you don't know why people come see you, you should not have an app. You should not have a chatbot. You should start with the basics.
Okay, you brought up something, and I want to go down this. I want to go down. It's not a rabbit hole; it's a huge hole, but it's a tangent to what you just mentioned too when it comes to relationship to email. Email. I mean, we've been declaring it dead, or people have been declaring it dead for I don't know how long. By far not dead. But good. Tim's on the other side. All right, so. My thing is, I am always constantly surprised by the surprise in people when I talk to them about email and their methodology. They're like this random monkey with a button, like, oh, hey, let's do that, bang. And when you start talking about workflow and conditional communication and triggered communication and incubation, words that are just amazing alien terminology to them, and you start referring to methodology of engagement and then reaction to engagement and create these workflows. And most email platforms that are in use today by most of the hotels, have this functionality that is this dormant little button on the right-hand side that nobody ever knew. Oh, I don't know what that thing is. That says workflow. That sounds like work. Whatever it is. I'm in amazement that when you start showing them how to actually create that environment of communication via email, and the level of revenue that it triggers, not to mention just the revenue and conversion for using it, but the lifetime value of the communication value that it begins to create. It's mind-blowing. And I'm always surprised by that. I mean, maybe I'm just still, do you guys see the same stuff? I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy how they don't think about
I've yet to encounter a hotel or a brand that at all uses any form of like contextual workflow in their email.
Right. Mm-hmm. I have a client where we're getting there, but we're not.
Actually, you have a client that is because they're using Flip2.
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true.
Flip2,
but we're not as
contextual.
But we're not as consistently good at it as we need to be.
Right. But it's amazing. you can set up that if someone doesn't open the email, a day later, send an all text version of the email.
Right.
That is a perfect example of a workflow that makes complete sense and will drive a massive impact.
Absolutely.
Or they opened and clicked and went into a process and partially completed the process.
Yep.
2 days later, doing if you'd like to return and finish this process, here's how you get there, is huge. And when you do
especially
it
if you have saved where they were in that process,
right,
because a lot of them will have the processes gone and they've got to start over, and maybe they stop because you asked them 23 questions, which is just ridiculous. So,
but I mean, this actually isn't. It's the technology is there. A lot of technology does it, but it requires thoughtfulness and process planning.
And and to the point of thoughtfulness, right? This is my mantra, and I'm gonna trademark this because I care about this a ton. Ban the blast.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
if you're sending an email to your entire list in
over and over,
if you're doing it once in 2018, you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
right.
Period. You should be sending to, and it's easy to do. The tech is easy, right? The thoughtfulness is hard. The setting things up takes some time and takes some thought.
Oh, by the way, and if your email marketing is all based around discounting, again, you're doing it wrong.
Funny story about this, Ed. Funny story. I'm sure I've told this on the show before. But I had a client. They brought, one of the things we talked about was I took them through my findings. I took them through my recommendations. And, one of the things I said was, we have to do email more. Email is so much more effective than anything else you're doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a person in the room said, no, we find that doesn't work for us because we make so much less money on email than any other channel. And I said, yeah. And I showed them their emails. And I was like, here's the email that you sent last week for 25% off. Here's the email you sent before that for 22% off. Here's the email you sent before that for 18% off. Here's the one you sent before that for 24% off. I was like, of course you're making less money. Every single email is about how people can pay less money. How about you send an email at full price and see what happens?
Yeah. Well, here's a nutty thought. Maybe an off season to an audience that are in a different climate than your off season is an email talking about why now's a really cool time to come. Absolutely. I still don't understand, even the likes of Disney. I don't understand why I don't get emails as a local pass holder to Disney on when the slowest day of the year is.
But that goes hands in hand with
because I would go.
I actually do this. This was something we figured out at leading hotels. We did this as a test. We did this in 2009 and 2010 when there was blood on the walls, right? Things were bad for lots of hotels with lots of distressed inventory that were our valued customers, right? They weren't our valued customers. They were people who'd stayed with us relatively recently and were relatively close by and didn't necessarily need airlift to get there.
Right.
And this is leading, where airlift usually wasn't a problem for these guests. And it was and those sometimes were discounts, but they were discounts that were in line with the rev management strategy. If this was distressed inventory, you are getting a discount because you are a valued customer. You are a guest. It's our guest appreciation sale. And those things work brilliantly. And also, this is really key, though. I got to get this point in because this is so important. Also, it didn't set the expectation that this was what the rate was all the time. This is a guest appreciation thing for you. And people are like, oh, that I get. We often did it more as value adds than discounts. But nonetheless, they worked great. And it was to a very narrow segment of people who could get here quickly 4 times when we were distressed.
And maybe include in that why now's a good time to come.
And absolutely.
And you made the point before. It's like, if you get a discount after staying there of 25 or 50% off for the next offer, the first reaction that there's potential for that person is like, that means I overpaid the first time. Because if you're giving it to me for half off the second time,
it's the Groupon problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I do want to give credit to where credit's due. This is a statement that was made in a revenue management conversation that I had, Calvin Anderson, and when he was talking about how they're getting away from promotion discount. There's times and opportunities for all of it, but I can talk about something that's separate. But he made the comment that I thought was brilliant. He says, we're going to stop selling sweatshirts with sleeves. Because that's what you're really saying by bar and adding breakfast or something and adding this. It's like, and you get the shirt with the sleeves. And you're kind of like, yeah, shouldn't I already be, So it was a way of trying to explain how this combinationing stuff of like, hey, our rate is discounted and here's another discount with that. It's like, no, we're not doing
it. Here's your involuntary resort.
Right.
Yes.
But look, it includes all these things you won't use.
That you won't use, or you should have already expected that there was a door on your room with a TV in it. But hey, that's a part of the resort fee now. But yes, to that end.
But this is the thing, like market, educate, add value.
Right.
I can tell you right now, like I can't tell you how many people I've changed their minds on when to come to Orlando because you want to know when to come right now.
Okay.
And here's the other thing, for people who will say it's very hard for an individual hotel to drive demand, right? So it's hard. If you're in a drive market, it's easier. But generally speaking, it's tough.
Sure, if you're Hawaii, it's hard.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the key. And Ed, I think we're saying the same thing. We're just using slightly different words for it, right? Send it to people who are local, right? People who can get there easily, right? Is definitely one thing. Crap, I forgot what the other one was.
It's not.
I want to eliminate 3 departments from the government.
Yeah, but it isn't just that. It's like if you are Hawaii, you look at if you can identify individuals who may not have children or something who would not be, they're in school, right? That's tying them to if they're retired, certain segments where you can do that. That's helpful.
And this goes back to
it's going to give you a higher probability and give them something that's tailored to them, not just hey, retired people, here's this adventure radical surfing, surf with the sharks adventure. I don't know.
How about hey, retired people? All the kids are in school. It's a great time to come.
By the way, Ed,
exactly.
I remembered the other one. This is really quick. The other one is there is demand for the marketplace where what you can do is steal share. Right. To give a real world example, I have a client, I've mentioned them before, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Cedar Rapids, Iowa is a tough sell this time of year. There are not a lot of people you're going to get to go to Cedar Rapids for any reason as an individual property if they're not already intending to go. But you can absolutely do a good job of saying, here's why you stay with us and not the DoubleTree. Here's absolutely why you stay with us and not the American.
Valin on chat actually made a really good point regarding email that many hotels cram too many calls to action into a single drop and then wonder why conversion's terrible. So this is something we talk to our clients about all the time. Every call to action you add to an email is at the expense of every other call to action on that email.
Right.
So, like, goals should be 1, maybe 2, no more.
Well, that goes back to our original conversation about workflow, though. It's because going back to what you're saying, Robert, or what we're saying before, if you start isolating out your data correctly and you can identify the trigger points of what their engagement with you was, for instance, sending out an email, whether it was opened or not opened, whether they opened on the special deal link that you had, or whether it was a military offer or a package offer, whatever, you begin to isolate out those interests and then retailer another message to them in your workflow decision process that sends them something similar but different or same as, and see whether their engagement is the same or whether it's because of their location. Then what you know about them, to your point, Tim, as to their location base, as to whether they can take advantage of the timeliness of the offer or the value of the offer based on their demographic profiling, as you pointed out, Ed, about whether they're without kids at a time that they don't want to be around kids or post school or whatever, or if they're in school and they're not traveling as a family. All those turns into conditional workflow things that says we're going to trigger these connections and communications based on what we know of them in the time sequence. And one of them is your competitive set. I think I mentioned on the show before, I had properties that were way up in North Canada, up in Yellowknife. And I did this amazing presentation, I thought, in Vancouver, blah, blah, and the guy comes up and says, hey, Lauren, that's all great stuff, but I deal with Oilers. And half the year, they put tents outside of the hotels because there's not enough rooms. The other half of the year, ain't nobody around. I can shoot down the hallway a can and nobody's going to hit because it's snowed up and nothing's here.
But you hit it here.
But you hit it. Right. And that's the story of it, is at the end of it, he says, hey, if you ever want to come up, get a 22-pound fish or a 16-point bucker. And I'm like, does that happen when you guys are empty? It's like, oh, yeah. It's like, you never thought that there's another market,
baby.
Yeah, you know, boom, let's go for them. And so that's the idea, is but not knowing who you're serving in a way, and when you're serving them.
Who would think Oilers would at all be interested in hunting or fishing?
Right. That's just crazy talk. Or Japanese businessmen that want to get off the grid, you know.
Right.
Oh. I had a major ski resort client that was trying to tell me that their summer guests were completely different than their winter guests. And it's like, boy, in some cases,
sure,
maybe. But I mean, they were talking about two mutually exclusive. And you're like, boy, you are doing something radically. But I mean, they had really crappy data. No. And B, they were just looking at it going, well, yeah, we see no overlap and we've tried stuff, but it just doesn't work. And it's like, what? No. And they didn't have any good data to try to, it wasn't measurable what they were doing, right? So they didn't have any results. So they just assumed this doesn't work. And it's amazing.
So I want to share my screen for 1 second. I want to say something that I love. One of the dumbest things I know that people miss is this thing called Fitts Law, right? So ProFlowers, as a for instance, is a very, very good e-commerce site. Now they have a much easier sell, right? People only buy flowers for a couple of reasons. You know, it's somebody's birthday, it's your anniversary, you pissed off your significant other, right? There's not a lot of reasons you buy flowers. And when you do, you buy them. But their emails convert at enormously high rates, well into the double digits. Right, and I don't remember the exact number, but I mean, like literally 50% or 60%. I don't care what you sell; you're converting that high. You're doing something right.
You're doing good, yeah.
Okay, so there's this dumb thing I know called Fitts Law. Fitt was a PhD. Fitt worked for Apple or somebody like that. I forget which, but he was a PhD, and he wrote his doctoral dissertation around this idea. Bear with me because this is going to blow your minds. This is so crazy. Fitt discovered that things on a screen that are larger are easier to click on than things that are smaller. I know, shocking, right? But look at what ProFlowers does. Look at what ProFlowers does, right? Here's the countdown is on for Easter. Look at the call to action. Right? That's it. One big thing. Oh, if you scroll down, there's a couple smaller things. Right. Scroll down a little bit more. Okay, we've got a couple other things, right? Yeah. But what do they want you to do? They want you to click on this one. They made it big to make it easy to click on. And they gave you some secondary stuff. So it's not just you have to have a single call to action. It's not that you can't have additional calls to action. It's that you have to have some priority around them. What do you absolutely demand they do? What can they do? What's available to do if they really have to? Dr. Fitt wrote a paper about this. Yeah, probably something we ought to take. He did the math. We know it works.
But they were very smart. I'm sure they understood their clients because the $19.99 was the cheapest thing on the page. Looked like a deal. They're getting $1.25 a tulip, sort of thing, which is probably not that bad for them. But then you see all the stuff below that's $55 with chocolate and all these value adds for people who are looking at it going, wow, that looks like a great price, but I need to do something better. I'm in deeper trouble than that. And heaven forbid, my wife goes online and finds
discount chocolate. But it goes back to something else too. It's like
that felt like a $45.
That's a $45 problem. But the other problem
happy birthday celebration. Here's the Groupon.
Right. So you get too many involvements into so many things too, where people actually like to see their name in lights, and they try to put too much information into what they're presenting and missing the purpose of what the presentation is for. It's to bang the button. It's to create the action and causation to follow up with. Any upselling or any value propositions that are beyond what the simple statement is can be addressed once they've acknowledged that they're interested in the statement. We're going back to your 95% issue that you're talking about, Tim. It's like a lot of people probably didn't engage because they lost interest because it wasn't clear to them what would be of interest to them.
Well,
so to that end,
sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
One of the things we do a lot when we look at the data is we don't look at conversion rate. We look at conversion rate by the normal way everybody looks at it most of the time. But generally speaking, one of the first things we do is we factor out, like, if there's a jobs part of the website, did people go there? Then we take that out of the numbers. You know, if there's an investor site, which admittedly I don't have a lot of these days, but I certainly did, we take those out because those people came for entirely different reasons, right? What's your actual conversion of people who were trying to do this one thing? When I worked for a major franchisor, anybody who went to the franchisee section, we factored out because we weren't going to sell them a room. We were going to sell them a box of rooms. It was an entirely different need. We looked at task completion rate and understood there were lots of different tasks that people were coming for. So that's hard to do. And for a lot of individual hotels, probably not worth it most of the time. But if your conversion rate is 1% or 2%, there's a metric crap ton of people, literally 98 or 99 people out of 100, who didn't come there because they're ready to book, didn't come there because they even want to book. They came there because they had questions. They might be guests to Ed's.
They might be on property
before. They might be on property, right? Or they're driving there and they needed the damn address. You know, so understanding what people are trying to accomplish is hugely important and something we don't do. Most properties do not do.
And using
good job
using the technology to go do it effectively. So if they are on property, can you geofence that to, instead of getting the general homepage for the hotel, maybe have something that would be more relevant to an on-property guest? That might
funny
be
story. This took us a day to troubleshoot. When I worked at Wyndham, there was a guy, an IT guy who was responsible for property systems, who thought it would be a good idea. It wasn't a terrible idea, and this is a long time ago. This is 15 years ago, so we should have thought about it sooner. But he set it up that the browser, that the deploy that went out to the Wi-Fi settings or the network settings at the hotel, when people logged in, the first place they would go is the Ramada homepage. And what occurred was, of course, our conversion rate went in the toilet that day. And it took us a day to figure out what was going on. And we were like, oh, yeah, no, don't do that. Nope. We'll make a special thing over here. Good idea.
A little landing page over there,
Good concept, terrible execution, but let's fix that. But,
going back to...
But it absolutely, shot the conversion rate to hell because suddenly we got all this traffic from people who weren't going to book. They were in the room.
Right. Well,
but you have to be careful. Be careful, though, of working with agencies or things like that when they start filtering out these people.
Oh, for sure.
Sometimes there are babies going out with, hey, look at our conversion. Well, no, that wasn't a process. Well, wait a second. I think that where were they going and what were, that might have been something to go.
This is where independent hotels have a great latitude of opportunity for them. And I know Ed's shaking his head with it too. It's like, yes, you want to fence. I had it where I fenced it that with you within 3 miles and you on a mobile or anything, went and logged into the website, it physically changed the website you're looking for because the content was different. You're closer to the property. So there's a difference between that and being 1,000 miles from the property and trying to provide information sources for them. It's making sure that content that you're connecting to for what you're offering goes directly to just that content without a Pandora's box of other variables. You can get your navigation back to a website, but really the content should be relevant to what you introduced it for. But again, it goes to the statement that if you have to explain the punchline of a joke, it's not a good joke. If in an ad, you have to explain what the ad's about, it's not a good ad. So less is more, to your point, Tim. And that's I know,
as long
right?
As it makes you laugh, it's a good joke.
And I laugh at some strange jokes.
Trey Parker has proven that.
Hey, we laugh at Robert's jokes, so we know we all have a good sense of humor. Or at least
we're kind.
Okay,
they're kind. You're kind.
I'm trying to be nice again, but no.
No, but just on the content side, and I don't know. I know Tim has covered most of the royal family with the content is king and that sort of. So maybe we're talking about the Queen Mum or so. I don't know. There's got to be someone who hasn't. But But the key is the call to action. Every page needs to have a purpose. Why is it there? And that's where all these guys get so far off track on content creation, because we need a blog post, or we need a couple 3 a week or something. Like, it's like, about, well, I don't care. We're just feeding
Right,
the,
they don't care.
feeding the beast.
They
Like,
just wanna
what are they
Sure.
supposed to do when they see that? What's it relevant to? And it's like, oh, it's something about food and beverage, or here's a restaurant spec. I don't know. There's got to be something to tie it
and
back
with all
and to
these
make
things, I'll tell you,
Makes
like,
sense.
if you're the one responsible for this at the hotel, I'm gonna give you one of my management tips. When someone comes to you telling you that you should do something, or something should be some way, your immediate question should be,
Why?
why, and what's the data
Right.
behind
Oh,
it?
yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And if there is no data, that means it's opinion. And when you're the one in charge, you're the only one with opinion when you're void of data.
So this is.
That's a very good point to be made. That's a very good point.
You have just restated what I call Peter's corollary to Kaushik's law, right? Avinash Kaushik, right? Brilliant guy, evangelist for Google around Google Analytics. He's a big analytics guy.
Yeah.
Has said for years, beware the hippo.
Yep.
And the hippo is the highest paid
Person
person's
in the room.
Opinion.
Okay.
Yep.
My corollary to that has always been, especially if you're the hippo.
Right.
That's the worst place to be in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Period. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
But there are times that you're devoid of data.
Yeah.
And if
Yes.
you're devoid of data and you're the person responsible for the specific thing, then your opinion's first.
Oh,
But
Mhm.
that also means you're in test mode because you're devoid of data.
Mhm.
So your opinion's the starting point, and then
That's
you get
exactly
off
right.
your opinion as fast as you can.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
And don't-
my goal when I ran the teams I ran at Leading and Wyndham and places like that was to be the dumbest guy in the room. Right? You show up with your data and prove me wrong every day. And if we did that, we did well.
Mhm. Yep. It goes back to the belief.
Hated having me as an employee because
Because
I just would have found ways that had absolutely no gain to prove you wrong.
Oh yeah, no. I would
Like, I'd be like, oh, hey, by the way, you said this the other day, and I know this doesn't actually have any impact to the business whatsoever.
No.
But here's how you're wrong.
I learned this from a boss I had years ago. You would bet that your idea was better than her idea, and she would go up to 5-1. You'd put in $1, and she'd put in up to $5.
Yeah, I love this
The
story.
idea
You've
was.
told this story before.
I think I've told this story before, right? And the goal was to prove her wrong, right? And if you were right, you won the money. And if she was right, the money went into a kitty, and at the end of the month, it'd be spent for like a pizza party or something like that, right? And so one day I was asking her about it. And we were having a conversation, part of my development plan, and things like that, like how I could get better and stuff. And she goes, "Well, here's the trick of this, right?" I can't remember what my leading question was, but she said, "Here's the trick. I'm on a 40% bonus plan. So when I'm wrong, I still win."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like every time somebody comes up with a better answer than the one I do, I get closer to my bonus.
Yep.
Yes. Exactly.
I'm
It's a
happy
no-lose
to pay
scenario.
$5 on every losing bet for that. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very, very
Even
true.
with
Which he was probably expensing off to employ whatever anyway. So
But I mean, that's the key. If you're the hippo, even if you're wrong, you win.
Yep.
If the data backs it, you win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, being the fact that this is the first show of the year and the fact that everybody has fresh, new, crisp budgets to be now breaking the seal on, feedback from what you guys are dealing with people. I mean, I know from the end of last year, everybody needed everything before the fall off the cliff by the first. And then after the first, everybody needed everything back from the end of the year to start back then. Any changes in strategies that you're seeing from people? Any, like, now we can finally do this because we have the budget, or now that it's this new year, this is our change in pace that we can finally get to? Anything that's kind of come out of the ordinary for anybody?
I'm hoping this year we see less spending on the core infrastructure upgrades because, my gosh, it had to have all been spent last year. every hotel we were talking to was in some form of
I don't know.
PMS, CRS, full web
Well, look at Best
redesign.
Western. Look at those guys. I mean, they went full bore. They didn't take on just the one elephant. They took on the whole freaking herd.
I know,
Brand, flag,
but it's at the expense.
property.
But here's the thing: it's at the expense of normal incremental operation.
Sure.
Like there's a major group in Vegas that literally has done nothing to move forward because of resetting their CRS. It took an entire year.
Sure.
And I saw a lot of that last year. So I'm hoping all that was spent last year. And this year is going to be about, okay, fix the architecture, which, listen, you got to do. It kind of seems like last year was the year everyone did it. Like everyone.
Oh, I don't know if they're. I don't know if
I think we're
they're.
still going to see more of that this year.
Yeah.
You got a lot of tech components in that tech stack, and boy,
I'm looking at
I'm seeing
What-
people
what
to be a little more conservative too. There's a lot of talk from the properties I'm talking to. You know, I sent out a tweet about this the other day, but there's a lot more supply coming into the market than there is demand. And folks,
Oh, and especially markets like New York.
yeah, folks seem to be really focused on keeping their powder dry just in case, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just in case we roll around to July or August and discover that there's plenty of room at the inn and not near enough guests looking for them.
You know, and there's an interesting dynamic happening in Orlando right now that a lot of people believe Disney did to itself accidentally, which is demand has been soft at Disney. Disney has continually opened up blackout dates, and a lot believe it's because of the upcoming new add-ons to the parks being now within reasonable wait time. And it's created some real softness in the market. Over the summer, Disney, who's normally blacked out to their cheapest pass holders, like released all the days. Like all of the days. What's normally a month and a half of blackout dates, all released.
That reminded me of something I forgot to mention before, and that was the use of membership and rewards programs. That for gift cards and so forth, that it's a wonderful marketing tool to leverage what you're referring to as, hey, I'm a local. It's a downtime at the park. Give me an advantage to come. Same too with if you're doing gift cards or any sort of membership value propositions. Enhance their value during your need cycles.
But also remember, like there are times where you also need to create the reason.
Right.
Yes. So one of the neat things I'm seeing some hotels in like urban areas doing during their soft times is they're hosting meetup groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they're the host. So it's not some meetup group came and paid them for the space. Like they're hosting the local meetup group. That's brilliant. I liken that. Like that's the small scale version of what Universal Studios did with October. October used to be horrible in Orlando. And then Universal went, let's open the park at night and make it really scary, gory, and sell tons of alcohol. It's now the most profitable time of year for Universal. And it's something Disney can't do. Because it crosses the brand line. And so think about that. That's the big scale. That's the hard way. Like, that they hire over 700 people for just the last 2 days of September to the first 3 days of November. Okay. But what was the lowest revenue month on their annual chart is now the most profitable time of year for them. So as someone who's in a hotel that has seasonality to it, think through what can you do? And it's not just discounting; it's create reason. Create reason.
Discount's the cheapest, easiest brainer way out. That doesn't make you money. It's lazy.
Laziest.
I did want to bring up the fact that I did think that this year is going to be an interesting one for Marriott because enough time has passed, enough settling in and reconnoitering and reconditioning and redefining and evaluating and reassigning and all this other stuff. Something's got to happen. Okay. Right now I'm dealing with hotels that are a little up to here with brand saturation. They're a little up to here about, I was the direct competitor of the Starwood product. Now he's my frenemy. I don't have my franchise value proposition like I did before because I got to play nice with them. You got to make it all happy for all of us. You're not taking care of those who are actually doing the business in the market. You're taking care of everybody, whether they're good or bad. I got to share business, and it's hurting my business, my bottom line. What are you doing about it? I think this is the year that something's got to be done about it in a way that's helpful to everybody that's engaged with it.
I don't know. I
think
mean, they've been doing pretty well in earnings, haven't they?
Oh, as for them, but then as Tim always is great to point out, the only winner out of a franchise relationship is the franchisor. And so for them, everything's fine.
I want to clarify. You left out a very important word there. The only consistent winner.
Okay.
Plenty of franchised hotels do really well all the time. There are plenty of reasons to be a friend. Don't forget,
right.
My brand
no.
To this day.
There is a value proposition to being a franchisee to particular brands in particular markets. There is also a reason not to be a franchisee for particular brands in particular markets.
That is also correct. Yep.
And there's a hell of an advantage also to those who choose not to be a franchisee of anybody, if in the particular market. So there's values to.
And on that topic, I've thrown into the it will be in the comments in a second, a little article which I wrote, which came out today. Part 1. There's a part 2 coming out.
Did you just pull a Tim? You pulled a Tim.
I did.
No, it's not.
But my content's
his site.
My content's fresh. So.
Well, by fresh it means he was paid to create it.
My content is evergreen.
Toss us the terminology.
Exactly.
You're more of like the organic milk, Robert. It's got a really short shelf life, but it's expensive.
You're raw water.
Raw
water.
Oh gosh. Hey. Watermelon water.
I want you to know they wanted.
We hate you because we hate you.
They wanted 750 words, and I gave them over 2,200. So no.
Damn.
By the way, that should be like on your business card.
Exactly. I don't charge per word.
Oh my gosh!
They asked me for 750. I gave them.
I gave them 200.
That's right. That is value. That is value.
I've done that for clients that asked me to write articles, and they handed it back, saying, "No, I only really needed 750. You're gonna make it small."
Yeah.
All right, can we start?
But anyway, it's about the battle between the brands and the OTA. So tying into Lauren, actually, part 2 goes more into the economics of the challenges, but part
you have
1
it labeled long because it says hotels and online agencies. Where isn't it more branded hotels and online agencies, and actually it's the brands, not the hotels.
It should be brands. I didn't write the headline.
Okay, because I mean,
send your comments to Kevin May.
War. I don't see the average independent hotelier at war with an hotel.
No. It is the brands. It's the hotel brands and the online agencies, and it is an existential war. I mean, it is really. It is
because one's going to kill. One can kill the other, and the other just needs to find a way to stop that from happening and be able to coexist.
Right. And basically, part 1 has two of the aspects. One is business model, which the OTAs win, and number 2 is ad spend, which is kind of a corollary to the business or an output of the business model, which also the OTAs win. And so you'll see in what happens in part 2. But one of the interesting stats is that the OTAs got $16 billion in fees. That's what they took in. Now, from again, all hotels around the world. Now, that's quite a bit in terms of basically commission revenue. Branded hotels took in $11 billion. So there's a little bit of a gap there in terms of the OTAs getting
just a smidge,
40%.
Just a smidge.
So what that tells you is the brands who have lit up this war with the OTAs are doing the right thing. They're punching up, way up.
Oh yeah, they are punching up. You're absolutely right, but. Part 2, which I don't know if it'll be out tomorrow or Monday. We'll see. I'm not sure Kevin's going to publish it, but
is it going to be part 2?
Part 2? No. But it will be. But it covers off some other, basically the winners and losers with the hoteliers, the brands, and the OTAs. So we'll see the hotels and loyalty, right? Of how that ties in, and the dynamics of these Well, you guys know my thoughts on the discounting to your most loyal and highly valued guests.
I think it's a great idea. They've already shown a penchant to spend without resistance with you, so why not make it cheaper for them?
Exactly. Lower the cost.
Lower the revenue stream for them.
Exactly.
I don't understand what the laughter is. Is that a ridiculous statement?
No,
that my highest profit customers should pay less?
Exactly. You can work those high profit customers down to everybody else.
Let's stomp those puppies down to the baseline, baby.
That's right. Kind of income redistribution sort of thing from your profits to
it's a socialist approach to marketing.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, but true.
Gents, by the way, I just recognized the time. Actually, I was aware of the time, but I have a 1:30. I need to take care of at least one item before that call.
No. Client, we have a rule.
Wait.
The item.
Yes, I got to onboard some groceries.
No.
2018,
we all agreed.
Prepare for the meeting.
No. 2018, we all agreed. Clients do not get in the way of our fun. That's
right.
Rule.
See, Lauren's saying that now because Lauren this year is working full time.
I'm busting my butt. And I'm like, man, I'm working too much. What's up with this? This is not what I want to do. I don't want to work that much. Damn it.
So, Tim,
Lauren,
really nice having you. We forgot what it was like. So
yeah, actually, I did.
Nice
now that I've said
back.
that, I'm going to lose all my clients and I'm going to be begging for business. So thanks. I just jinxed myself, I think.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, right?
Right. Be careful what you wish for. Mr. Tim, since you do have to depart from us, and yes, it is close to the 2-hour mark, where can people find more about your illustrious career and what you are passionate about?
TimPeter.com is the easiest way to find everything. I am at TCPeter on Twitter.
And please do not be remiss in your podcast because I thoroughly enjoy it each week.
Episode just went up last night.
Okay, good.
Got an email.
I did not notice it in Stitcher. I'll have to check.
Got a great email a week ago. I've been talking a lot about AI and where AI is heading and the like, and I always bring it back to what can you do right now, and it does come back to things like, do you have the right content? Are you answering customers' questions, etc. But I'm very proud of the title of this one. It's a terrible title from an SEO perspective, and it's a brilliant title from a wake people up, because somebody said a guy emailed me. I actually changed his name for the podcast, but a guy from Florida, a guy from Orlando, who is the head of sales for a company. And he says, his business is entirely about relationships. He has nothing to fear from AI, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, so the title of the podcast was AI Won't Steal Your Job. Smart people who put AI to work will.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So anyway, that was the latest
like
episode. Just went up last night. So,
yep.
TimPeter.com, how you find all that.
Yeah,
And
I love your new email series too. Under your new additional S on your last name, the one I sent you. I've been getting emails from a Tim Peters, the CFO guru, the one I forwarded you a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Imposter Tim Peter.
Actually, what's really funny is there's another Tim Peters who is a consultant in a different industry. He's like architectural consulting or something like that, who literally lives about 4 miles from me, and his business is literally 4 miles away.
Freakonomics at work right there, buddy.
It just goes to show supply and demand problems. There's an abundance of supply of Peters around here, and not near enough demand.
Not near enough to me.
I'm gonna head off as well.
Let's wrap it all up. We're good. We can wrap it all
you
up.
can learn about Flip2 by going to flip.to, and you can find me. Probably stay off my Twitter for a couple of weeks, but everywhere else you can find me at Edward StOnge. If you do want to see me troll people about UCF, you can follow me on Twitter.
Excellent. And Mr. Robert, where can people find you and all the happiness that you have other than Focusrite?
That's right. Robert K. Cole on social media or rockcheetah.com, which unfortunately has not been relaunched. I have some great new themes. I've got to retool some of my older stuff where I embedded the image into the content of the WordPress. It's going to take a little while.
Happy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to make sure everyone for archives of this show and all other 125 others of these. You can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. We will have the show notes, the time for sequence of our topics, as well as links to the topics that we did have and links that we didn't even get to. That was out of the grab bag of happiness that we have each week. Thank compliments to Robert and his ever persistent way of finding great articles that we never quite get to share on a
That's
basis.
right.
But thank you very much for always doing that and sharing it with the HSMAI.
Stuart, sorry we didn't have time to get to you today. We'll have you on the next show.
Yeah, Stuart, sorry we ran out of time, dude. Didn't mean to. But hopefully next
in the
time.
green
I
room.
was nice to Matt Davis. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And for everyone, I will be chasing you down to see whether or not we like it being on Facebook to start, or we want to go back to the YouTube. Obviously, we lose the green room by doing this, but it seems like we get some
So
dialogue.
everything I said to you when I first came on was public?
I don't know, but we'll find out, right? To everyone watching the show today, everyone that joined, and for those who will listen to the recording later on, thank you so much for your time spent with it. We'll catch you next Friday for show number 127 of This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing. So until then, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Cheers, everybody. Bye now.
Cheers.